Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of Genesis Prime, watching the stars through the wide window. The space station moved slowly around Earth, its metal walls humming with the sound of machines. He held a coffee cup that had gone cold hours ago, but he did not notice. His mind was busy with dark thoughts. The message had come 3 days ago. Long-range sensors had picked up something big moving toward their solar system. At first, the scientists thought it might be asteroids or space rocks. Then the computers got a better look. What they saw made everyone afraid. Ships, hundreds of them, maybe thousands, all heading straight for Earth. Jake had been a soldier for 30 years. He had fought in the Colony Wars and the Mars Rebellion. He knew what war looked like. But he had never seen anything like this. The enemy fleet was bigger than anything humans had ever built. Their ships were long and dark, covered in weapons that could destroy planets. Dr. Lisa Kane walked into the command center carrying a tablet computer. Her face looked tired. She had been working for days without sleep trying to understand what the sensors were showing them. "Admiral, I have the latest reports," she said, setting the tablet on the table. "The enemy ships are moving at .7 light speed. They will reach our outer defenses in 68 hours. Jake looked at the numbers on the screen. Each enemy ship was 3 times bigger than Earth's largest battleship. Their weapons were more powerful than anything humans had ever made. The math was simple and terrible. Earth would lose this fight. "What do we know about them?" Jake asked. Lisa pulled up another screen. "We call them the Zephyrian Empire. Our computers picked up some of their radio signals. They have been taking over planets for thousands of years. They have conquered 300 star systems. What do they want with Earth? The same thing they want with every planet, complete control. Their messages talk about adding Earth to their collection." Jake felt sick. He had sworn to protect Earth and all the human colonies. But how could he fight an enemy this powerful? Earth's entire defense fleet had only 50 ships. The enemy had thousands. Captain Steve Walsh entered the room. His uniform was dirty from working on his ship all night. The Midnight Runner was Earth's best spy ship, built for sneaking around without being seen. "Admiral, I just got back from the Jupiter station," Steve said. "I was able to intercept more enemy communications. It is worse than we thought." Jake waited for the bad news. "They are not just planning to take over Earth," Steve continued. "They want to destroy our cities first, kill most of the population, leave just enough people alive to work as slaves." The room went quiet. Lisa put her hand over her mouth. Jake felt anger rise in his chest, but he pushed it down. Anger would not help them now. They needed to think clearly. "How long do we have?" Jake asked. 72 hours until their main fleet arrives, but they are sending scout ships ahead. Those will get here in 48 hours. Jake walked to the big window and looked down at Earth. The planet looked so peaceful from space. Blue oceans and white clouds. Millions of people down there had no idea what was coming. They were going to work and school, having dinner with their families, making plans for the weekend. None of them knew that in 3 days, their world might end. Dr. Kane cleared her throat. "Admiral, there might be something else. Something that could help us." Jake turned around. "What do you mean?" "My team has been studying those old ruins we found on Mars, the ones that are millions of years old. We found some new writings carved into the walls." Lisa pulled up pictures on her tablet. The images showed strange symbols cut deep into red rock. "We think these symbols are a language. Ben Rodriguez and Amy Foster have been trying to translate them. The symbols tell a story about something called the Black Fleet." "What is the Black Fleet?" Steve asked. "We are not completely sure," Lisa said. "But the writings talk about guardians, ancient protectors who help younger races when older empires try to destroy them. The symbols say the Black Fleet appears when good people face enemies they cannot defeat." Jake studied the alien writing. The symbols looked like they had been made by claws or sharp tools. They were arranged in patterns that hurt his eyes to look at. "Do you think this Black Fleet is real?" Jake asked. "The writings are millions of years old," Lisa said. "Someone or something carved these symbols long before humans existed. The stories they tell are about many different wars between many different races, all across the galaxy. Steve shook his head. It sounds like fairy tales. Magic spaceships that show up to save the day. Maybe, Lisa said. But fairy tales sometimes come from real events. What if there really are guardians out there? What if they are still watching? Jake thought about this. He was a practical man who believed in things he could see and touch. But right now, Earth needed any help it could get. Even help from ancient stories. What would we need to do to contact this black fleet? He asked. Lisa looked excited. The symbols mention a signal, a special message that travels faster than light. The writings give exact instructions for building a device to send this message. How long would it take to build? Ben thinks we could have it ready in 40 hours, but Admiral, we would need to use almost all of our remaining power. If this does not work, we will not have enough energy left to fight the enemy ships. Jake looked out the window again. Earth was so beautiful and fragile. In a few days, it might be a dead rock covered in ash and ruins. The Zephyrian Empire would add another world to their collection. He thought about his daughter Sarah, who lived in New York. His son Peter, who was studying to be a doctor. His wife Marie, who worked at the children's hospital. All the people he loved were down there on that blue planet, trusting him to keep them safe. The smart choice was to use their power for weapons and shields, to fight the enemy ships with everything they had. Even if they lost, at least they would go down fighting. But maybe the smart choice was not always the right choice. Dr. Kane, Jake said slowly, start building your signal device. We are going to try to call the Black Fleet. Lisa smiled for the first time in days. Yes, sir. I will get my team started right away. As she hurried out of the room, Jake looked back at the stars. Somewhere out there, an enemy fleet was coming to destroy everything he cared about. But maybe, just maybe, there were also guardians waiting to help. He just hoped they were not too late. The first enemy ships appeared at the edge of the solar system like dark clouds blocking out the stars. Captain Nicole Brooks watched from the bridge of her destroyer Defiant as the massive vessels moved closer to Earth. Each one was bigger than a city and covered in weapons that glowed with deadly energy. How many are there? She asked her second in command. Lieutenant Commander Rick Taylor checked his instruments. Sensors show over 800 ships, Captain, and more are still coming. Through the jump point, Nicole felt her stomach drop. 800 ships. Earth's entire defense fleet had only 50 vessels, and most of those were small patrol boats. The enemy had brought enough firepower to destroy 100 worlds. On the planet below, Colonel Dan Murphy stood in the war room deep under the Pentagon. Maps covered every wall, showing the positions of Earth's ground forces. Red dots marked where the enemy ships would likely land their troops. There were too many red dots. Sir, we have reports coming in from Luna Base, said Major Kate Phillips, his communications officer. The enemy fleet is moving into attack position. Dan looked at the biggest map, which showed the entire solar system. The enemy ships were spread out in a perfect formation, like a net closing around Earth. They had done this before. Many times. Send word to all units, Dan ordered. Prepare for planetary invasion. All civilians in target zones need to evacuate, immediately. On Luna Base, the moon's main defense station, Commander Alex Johnson watched the enemy fleet through his telescope. The alien ships were beautiful in a terrible way. Their hulls were smooth and dark, covered in patterns that seemed to move in the light of distant stars. Sir, they are charging their weapons, reported his weapons officer. Alex had been a soldier for 20 years, but he had never seen anything like this. The enemy guns were bigger than his entire base. When they fired, Luna Base would be turned into dust and metal scraps. All hands, prepare for battle, he announced over the base speakers. It has been an honor serving with you all. The first shots came without warning. Beams of blue energy lanced out from the enemy ships, striking Luna Base with the force of nuclear bombs. The base's shields held for exactly 3 seconds before collapsing. The next shots tore through the metal walls like paper. Alex felt the floor shake under his feet as explosions rocked the base. Emergency lights flashed red as the air began to leak out into space. Through the shattered windows, he could see pieces of his base floating away into the darkness. "Mayday, Mayday," he called into his radio. "Luna Base is under attack. We cannot hold them." But there was no answer. The enemy ships had jammed all communications. Admiral Jake Morrison watched the destruction of Luna Base from Genesis Prime. The enemy had destroyed humanity's first line of defense in less than 5 minutes. Now they were moving toward Earth itself. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the enemy fleet," reported his communications officer. "Put it on the main screen." The view screen flickered and showed the face of an alien creature. Its skin was gray and scaled with eyes like black holes. When it spoke, its voice was like grinding metal. "I am General Krathmore of the Zephyrian Empire," the creature said. "Your pathetic defenses have failed. Surrender now, and some of your people may be allowed to live as slaves. Refuse, and we will turn your world into ash." Jake stood up straight, his jaw set with determination. "This is Admiral Morrison of the Earth Defense Force. We will never surrender. If you want our world, you will have to take it." The alien's mouth opened in what might have been a smile, showing rows of sharp teeth. "So be it. Your species will learn the price of defiance." The transmission ended, and the enemy fleet began to move. Hundreds of ships accelerated toward Earth, their weapons glowing brighter with each passing second. Dr. Lisa Kane worked frantically in her underground laboratory as the base shook from enemy bombardment. Her hands moved quickly over the controls of the signal device she had built from the ancient Martian instructions. Ben Rodriguez and Amy Foster helped her connect the final power cables. "How much longer?" Ben asked, sweat dripping down his face. 10 more minutes, Lisa replied. "Maybe 15 if the power holds." Above them, explosions lit up the sky as human and alien ships fought among the stars. The human fleet was fighting bravely, but they were badly outnumbered. For every enemy ship destroyed, 3 human vessels were blown apart. Captain Steve Walsh piloted his stealth ship Midnight Runner through the chaos of battle. His job was to get close to the enemy fleet and gather information about their weapons and tactics. It was a suicide mission, but someone had to do it. "Sensors show the enemy flagship," his co-pilot reported. "It is the size of a small moon." Steve looked at the massive vessel through his scope. The ship was covered in gun turrets and missile launchers. At its center was a structure that looked like a palace made of black metal and crystal. "That must be where their emperor is," Steve said. "If we could take out their leader, maybe the rest would retreat." But even as he spoke, he knew it was hopeless. His tiny ship carried only 2 missiles. The enemy flagship had shields that could stop nuclear bombs. On Earth's surface, Lieutenant Paul Jackson's unit was planting explosive charges in downtown Chicago. If the enemy landed troops in the city, the bombs would deny them an easy victory. But Paul knew the explosives would also kill thousands of innocent people who had not been able to evacuate. "Sir, enemy dropships are entering the atmosphere," reported Sergeant Linda Hayes over the radio. "They will be here in 20 minutes. Paul looked up at the sky and saw streaks of fire as alien ships fell toward Earth like deadly meteors. Each one carried hundreds of enemy soldiers equipped with weapons that could cut through tank armor. "Fall year. Back to the secondary positions," Paul ordered. "We will make them pay for every street." In space, the battle was going badly for the human fleet. Commander Rick Taylor's cruiser Liberty Bell had lost its main engines and was drifting helplessly toward an enemy battleship. Half his crew was dead or wounded. "Sir, they are preparing to board us," his tactical officer reported. Rick looked around his damaged bridge. His ship was finished, but maybe he could still hurt the enemy. "Set the reactor to overload," he ordered. "When they get close enough, we will take them with us." Meanwhile, in the hidden facility where Dr. Kane worked, the signal device was almost ready. The alien symbols from Mars had provided exact specifications for a transmitter that could send messages across the galaxy instantly. "Power levels are at maximum," Amy reported. "The device is ready to transmit." Lisa looked at the ancient coordinates carved into the Martian stone. According to the symbols, the Black Fleet would appear at these exact stellar positions if they received the distress signal. But the writings were millions of years old. What if the Guardians were gone? What if they no longer cared about protecting younger races? "Dr. Kane, we need to transmit now," Ben said urgently. "The enemy ships are breaking through our final Defenses. Lisa took a deep breath and pressed the activation button. The device hummed with power as it sent humanity's desperate call for help racing across the dark spaces between stars. Above them, the sky burned with the light of dying ships as Earth's last defenders fought against impossible odds. The signal traveled faster than light itself, carrying a simple message into the void. Help us. We are not ready to die. In the depths of space, something ancient stirred and began to move toward the small blue planet, where a young species fought for its survival. Captain Rob Hayes sat alone in the hidden monitoring station called Omega Base, built deep inside an asteroid at the edge of the solar system. His job was to watch for threats coming from deep space, but right now, he was watching his home world die. Through his powerful telescopes, he could see the battle raging around Earth. Human ships exploded like tiny fireworks against the massive alien fleet. The enemy was winning, and there was nothing Rob could do to help from his lonely outpost. "Come on, Earth," he whispered to himself. "Fight back." But even as he spoke, another human destroyer vanished in a ball of fire. The alien ships barely seemed damaged. Their shields absorbed the human weapons like raindrops hitting a mountain. Then something strange happened. The stars began to dim. Rob checked his instruments twice, thinking there was a malfunction, but the readings were correct. The light from distant stars was actually getting weaker, as if something was blocking it out. "What the hell?" he muttered, adjusting his sensors to scan deeper into space. The radiation detectors started going crazy. Energy readings spiked far beyond anything Rob had ever seen. Whatever was happening, it was bigger than planets, bigger than stars. Near Jupiter, Admiral Jake Morrison fought to keep his remaining ships together. Only 12 human vessels were still fighting, surrounded by hundreds of enemy ships. His flagship, Genesis Prime, had lost half its weapons and most of its shields. "Sir, we are getting strange readings from the outer system," reported his science officer. "Something is causing massive gravitational distortions." Jake looked at the sensor display. The readings made no sense. Space itself seemed to be bending and twisting near the edge of the solar system, like fabric being pulled by invisible hands. "Could it be some kind of weapon?" he asked. "I do not know, sir. I have never seen anything like this." On the enemy flagship, General Crathmore was also seeing the strange readings. His science officers were confused and frightened. In all their thousands of years of conquest, they had never encountered anything that could affect space itself. "What is causing these distortions?" Crathmore demanded. "Unknown, General," his chief scientist replied. "The readings suggest something massive is approaching from dark space, but our sensors cannot identify what it is." Crathmore felt a chill of fear, though he tried to hide it from his officers. The Zephyrian Empire had ruled the galaxy for centuries because they understood technology better than anyone else. But this was something beyond their knowledge. Back on Earth, Dr. Lisa Kane was monitoring the signal device in her underground lab. The machine was still transmitting, sending humanity's distress call across the galaxy. But now the equipment was detecting something else. "Ben, Amy, come look at this," she called to her assistants. Ben Rodriguez hurried over to her workstation. "What is it, Dr. Kane?" "The device is picking up a response signal. Something is answering our call." Amy Foster checked the readings on her computer. "The signal is coming from the edge of the solar system, but Lisa, the transmission method is impossible. It is using quantum frequencies we have never seen before." Lisa felt her heart racing. The ancient texts said the Black Fleet would answer the call. Maybe, just maybe, they were telling the truth. Above ground, the battle was reaching its climax. Enemy dropships were landing in major cities around the world. Colonel Dan Murphy's ground forces were fighting street-to-street battles in New York, London, and Tokyo. The alien soldiers were tough and well-armed, but human troops were fighting for their homes and families. Lieutenant Paul Jackson crouched behind a destroyed car in downtown Chicago, firing his rifle at alien soldiers, advancing down the street. The enemy troops were tall and covered in armor that seemed to absorb bullets. Their weapons fired beams of energy that could cut through concrete walls. "We need to fall back," shouted Sergeant Linda Hayes. "There are too many of them." Paul looked around at his remaining soldiers. He had started the battle with 30 men. Now only 8 were still alive and fighting. The aliens just kept coming, wave after wave of them. But then something strange happened. The alien soldiers stopped advancing and looked up at the sky. Their weapons stopped firing as they stared at something Paul could not see. In space, the impossible was happening. The darkness between stars was taking shape, forming into massive objects that defied all understanding. Captain Rob Hayes watched from his hidden station as the void itself seemed to come alive. The ships that emerged from dark space were unlike anything anyone had ever seen. They were huge, bigger even than the largest Zephyrian vessels, but they seemed to be made of shadow and starlight. Their hulls absorbed light instead of reflecting it, making them appear as holes cut in space itself. "My God," Rob whispered. "The Black Fleet. It is real." There were dozens of them, maybe hundreds. They moved without any visible engines, gliding through space like living creatures swimming through water. As they approached the battle zone, the very fabric of reality seemed to bend around them. Admiral Morrison stared at his sensors in amazement. "What are those things?" His science officer was frantically trying to scan the newcomers. "Sir, I cannot get clear readings. They seem to exist partially outside normal spacetime. The computers cannot even count how many there are." The lead Black Fleet ship was the largest thing Morrison had ever seen. It was shaped like a giant manta ray made of living darkness, with energy crackling along its edges like purple lightning. As it moved toward the battle, smaller ships followed in its wake like a school of shadowfish. General Crathmore felt panic rising in his chest as he watched the Black Fleet approach. His weapons officers were trying to target the strange vessels, but their targeting systems could not lock onto them. "Fire all weapons," he ordered. "Destroy them before they reach us." The Zephyrian fleet unleashed everything they had. Plasma cannons, quantum torpedoes, and fusion missiles streaked toward the Black Fleet ships. The weapons were powerful enough to destroy moons, but something impossible happened. The attacks passed right through the dark ships as if they were made of smoke. The deadly energy beams and explosives hit nothing but empty space, while the Black Fleet continued its advance unchanged. "Impossible," Crathmore breathed. "Nothing can survive our weapons." But the Black Fleet was not just surviving. It was preparing to fight back. The lead shadow ship seemed to ripple like water, and suddenly space around the nearest Zephyrian battleship began to collapse in on itself. The enemy vessel, which had been firing its weapons just seconds before, simply vanished. Not destroyed, not exploded, just gone, as if it had never existed. Lieutenant Commander Grace Miller, Earth's communications officer, was frantically trying to understand what was happening. Her equipment was detecting signals from the Black Fleet, but they were unlike anything in human knowledge. Working alongside Dr. Kane, they realized the signals contained mathematical formulas and star charts. The Dark Guardians were trying to communicate, but in a language based on the fundamental forces of the universe itself. "They are not just ships," Grace said with wonder in her voice. "They are something else entirely. Something that exists beyond our understanding of physics." As more Zephyrian ships vanished into nothingness, General Crathmore finally understood the truth. His mighty empire, which had conquered hundreds of worlds, had encountered something far older and more powerful than anything they had ever imagined. The Black Fleet had arrived, and the balance of power in the galaxy was about to change forever. The Black Fleet moved through space like hunters stalking their prey. One by one, the massive Zephyrian warships simply disappeared, not destroyed in explosions of fire and metal, but erased from existence as if they had never been built. General Crathmore watched in horror as his mighty fleet vanished around him. Ships that had conquered 1,000 worlds were pulled into dark voids that opened in space itself. His weapons were useless. His shields provided no protection. The ancient guardians fought with forces beyond his understanding. "All ships, retreat. Immediately," he ordered over the communication system. "Jump to hyperspace, get us out of here." But when his ships tried to escape, they found something impossible. The Black Fleet had somehow blocked their hyperspace engines. The Zephyrian vessels were trapped in normal space with nowhere to run. Admiral Jake Morrison could hardly believe what he was seeing. The enemy fleet that had been destroying Earth just minutes ago was now running in panic. The dark ships pursued them like wolves chasing deer, their shadow forms moving faster than anything Morrison had ever seen. "Sir, we are receiving a signal," reported his communications officer. "It is coming from the lead Black Fleet vessel." "What kind of signal?" "It is not radio or laser communication, sir. The signal is being transmitted directly into our minds." Morrison felt a strange sensation, like someone was gently touching his thoughts. Then he heard a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Admiral Morrison of Earth," the voice said. "You and your officers will come aboard our vessel. It is time for us to speak." Morrison looked around his bridge. His crew stared back at him with wide eyes. They had all heard the voice too. "Prepare a shuttle," Morrison ordered. "Captain Walsh, Dr. Kane, you are with me." As their small shuttle approached the lead Black Fleet ship, Morrison could see that it was even stranger up close. The vessel seemed to shift and change shape as he watched, sometimes solid, sometimes translucent like a ghost. Its surface rippled like water, covered in patterns that hurt his eyes to look at directly. The shuttle passed through the ship's hull as if it were made of mist. Inside, they found themselves in a chamber that defied all logic. The walls seemed to stretch away into infinity, filled with swirling galaxies and distant stars. It was like being inside the universe itself. A figure approached them from the shifting darkness. It was tall and graceful, but its form kept changing. Sometimes it looked almost human, sometimes like a creature made of pure energy, sometimes like nothing Morrison could describe. "Welcome," the Guardian said, its voice echoing in their minds. "I am what you might call the speaker for the Black Fleet. We have watched your species for some time." Dr. Lisa Kane stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. "The writings on Mars mentioned you. You are the Guardians mentioned in the ancient texts." "We are older than your texts," the speaker replied. "We have existed since the first civilizations reached for the stars. We watch, we protect, we preserve." Captain Steve Walsh looked around the impossible chamber. "Why did you help us? What do you want from humanity?" The speaker's form solidified into something more human-like, as if it was trying to make them more comfortable. "Your species faced a test, Captain Walsh. When confronted with impossible odds, you chose to fight rather than surrender. This courage marked you as worthy of protection." Morrison found his voice. "What about the Zephyrian Empire? What will happen to them?" "They will carry word of this encounter back to their territories. No advanced civilization will dare attack Earth now, knowing that you are under our protection. The galaxy will learn that humanity has joined the community of protected species." Dr. Kane asked the question that had been bothering her since the beginning. "But why protect us at all? What makes humanity special?" The speaker moved closer, and Morrison could feel ancient wisdom radiating from the being. "Every species that reaches the stars faces the same choice. They can become conquerors, taking what they want from weaker civilizations, or they can become gardeners, protecting and nurturing younger races. Most choose conquest," the speaker continued. "It is easier to take than to give. But a few species like yours show the potential for something greater. You fought against impossible odds not for glory or conquest, but to protect your families and your way of life." Steve looked skeptical. "So what happens now? Do you just disappear back into space?" "We will leave, yes. But we do not abandon those we have chosen to protect. You will find that some of your technology has been enhanced. Your ships will be faster and stronger. Your weapons will be more effective, but this power comes with responsibility." The speaker gestured, and images filled the air around them. They saw dozens of star systems, each containing worlds with young civilizations just beginning to reach for space. "These worlds are now under your protection," the speaker explained. "As we protected you, you must protect them. When aggressive empires threaten these younger species, humanity will respond." Morrison felt the weight of this responsibility settling on his shoulders. "You are asking us to become galactic policemen. We are asking you to become what you have always had the potential to be: teachers, protectors. friends to those who cannot yet protect themselves. Dr. Kane stared at the images of alien worlds. Some were covered in oceans, others in vast forests or crystal formations. Each one was home to millions of beings who were just beginning to explore their own solar systems. "How will we know when they need help?" she asked. The speaker held out what might have been a hand. In it was a small device that seemed to be made of crystallized starlight. "This beacon will alert you when any of the protected worlds face extinction. It will also summon us if humanity itself ever faces such a threat again." Morrison took the beacon. It felt warm in his hands, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. "But remember," the speaker warned, "this protection is not permanent. If humanity ever becomes like the Zephyrian Empire, if you choose conquest over protection, we will withdraw our support. The galaxy has no place for those who would destroy the dreams of younger species." The three humans were transported back to their shuttle without warning. One moment they were in the impossible chamber. The next they were sitting in their small ship watching the Black Fleet prepare to depart. The dark vessels began to fade, becoming translucent and then invisible. But before they disappeared completely, the speaker's voice echoed one last time in Morrison's mind. "Grow well, children of Earth. The galaxy is watching to see what you will become." Colonel Dan Murphy stood in the ruins of Chicago, looking up at the sky. The Zephyrian dropships were fleeing the planet as fast as they could travel. The alien soldiers who had been fighting in the streets just minutes ago were now running back to their transports in panic. Lieutenant Paul Jackson walked up to him, his uniform torn and dirty from the street fighting. "Sir, what the hell just happened? The aliens are retreating." Dan smiled for the first time in days. "I think, Lieutenant, we just made some very powerful friends." In space around Earth, the human fleet was being rebuilt with technology they did not fully understand. Ships that had been destroyed in the battle were somehow repairing themselves. New weapons and shields appeared on vessels that had been built with much simpler equipment. Admiral Morrison returned to Genesis Prime to find his communications officer, Grace Miller, frantically trying to process dozens of signals from across the galaxy. "Sir, we are receiving distress calls," she reported. 3 different star systems are under attack by slave traders. They are asking for help." Morrison looked at the beacon in his hands. It was glowing brighter now, pulsing in rhythm with the distress signals. Captain Nicole Brooks approached him. Her destroyer Defiant had been badly damaged in the battle, but now it looked better than new. Strange additions had been made to its hull, weapons she did not recognize but somehow knew how to use. "Admiral, my ship is ready for departure," she reported. "Where are we going?" Morrison studied the star charts on the main display. 3 young civilizations were crying out for help, trusting that someone in the galaxy still cared about justice. "We are going to show the galaxy what humanity stands for," he said. "Prepare the fleet for departure. We have work to do." As the human ships moved away from Earth toward their first mission as galactic protectors, the planet below began to heal. The cities would be rebuilt. The people would recover. But Earth would never be the same small, isolated world it had once been. Humanity had passed its test and earned its place among the stars. The empire that had planned Earth's fall had learned that some prey become predators, and the galaxy was about to discover what humans could accomplish when they fought not for conquest, but for the protection of those who could not protect themselves. The Black Fleet was gone, but its legacy remained. Earth had become the guardian of dozens of worlds, and the balance of power in the galaxy had shifted forever.